after I had done the first company, Acts Awareness Comes Through Sharing, I realized that I was in a state of burnout because I had given out so much to the women that I was teaching them so much how to care for themselves. I was not taking in everything I was teaching for myself. And unfortunately, it's a common practice for a lot of practitioners.
Now, within the people that we are mostly targeting in the classes media are entrepreneurs that are purpose driven. That this entrepreneur must, okay, I think I already said it before, must have a kind of a bigger inner drive for what they are doing, which is bigger than money. Money is good. Money is really, really good. Nobody's going to downplay that. But money alone is not enough to be an entrepreneur.
What I locked in to do was to find out what resonated with me and how often I should or should not do it. And so that completely opened up the new company, the Breathing Experience. That was birthed around 2012. And it literally capsized. Now, this sounds really, really strange, but it capsized during the pandemic. Because during the pandemic, everybody was talking about breathwork. Everybody was talking about breathwork. Everybody was talking about it.
Hi, and thank you for checking out Obehi Podcast. We encourage people to own their story and share it with the world to expand their purpose. Before we start this presentation, I have something to quickly share with you. Are you a purpose-driven entrepreneur? Do you want to cut across the noise and attract your ideal client by leveraging your own story? Then pay attention. I have a signature program that can help you own your story. A 5-step transformative journey to reshape your professional and business narrative for success in less than 90 days. And it's available at academy.aclasses.org/story. This is what we have understood. Storytelling is the most powerful instrument known to man. And this is what that could mean to you. You can either own your story and use it to advance your purpose in your business and professional life, or someone else will do. The choice is yours. Now let's get started with today's episode of the Obehi Podcast.
Well, to begin thinking about my journey in counseling, coaching, mentoring women, I began my journey consciously about the age of 10. I recognized that I had a certain level of sensitivity to people, and I could see their pain and feel their pain. So it was an incident that happened with one of my best girlfriends, and I began to advocate for her in the situation because she was being bullied. And so, in the midst of being bullied, I'm looking at the bullier, and the bullier is my brother.
So you have a bully
So,
brother.
yeah, my brother was bullying my best friend. And I was kind of surprised that he would do that in front of me, knowing how sensitive I was, and that I was always um, in between trying to tell people how to treat somebody and why you're mistreating someone. So at the age of 10, I really knew that I should be counseling, but I didn't know the depth of counseling. I just knew I could help people navigate and work through their emotional chaos at that age. And so, but I had been told by my father, who understood my gifts, that I should be an attorney. So when I left high school, I sought out to become an attorney. But first, I enrolled in paralegal studies because I wanted to just put my foot in because at the time I'm working two jobs. Because, I come from a family that we worked very hard. My father, Jamaican descent, and he had a company over 40 years. And so I was doing contracts when I was little. So I learned that, hard work was going to get you where you needed to be. So after I finished paralegal studies, in between, I recognized this was not a fit for me. So now I began to seek out uh, who is Eliza, what makes Eliza happy, what seems to bring about an ease of satisfaction for Eliza. So I went into nursing, and some dynamics about nursing just did not work. So I said, okay, this is not the fit. So one day I saw a job in the paper, and I was like, oh my gosh, this looks like my perfect job. I'm going to apply. So initially, I knew on paper I did not qualify, but in my head, oh, I have every component for this job, and I am going to get this job. So I go that morning, I get up and I'm so excited about going for this interview. And I look outside and it's snowing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, should I go? Should I not go? So I said, I'm going to go because I don't care about snow. I like snow. I'm used to snow. I'm going to this job. So I get to the job interview and they begin to interview me. And what I find out is that nobody else is interviewing for this position but me. And the position is a position that is from the Center for Disease Control through an organization in Philadelphia. And it's for a woman counselor to actually interview other women from this instrument, this like 40-page instrument, which is technically a survey. And I'm going to be collecting data on the sexual health practices. And so I got the job by default because nobody showed up. So I was so grateful for the determination to go in the snow because nobody else had the determination that day. So that landed me a job that would take me into my new career in counseling. And they actually paid for my complete schooling. So, when you believe who you are, when you have a little sparkle, a little inkling that there is something inside of you that's connected to something that you desire, it has nothing to do with if you feel like you're qualified. It's the zeal, it's that innate knowing, it's that spiritual intelligence that I talk about today that will guide you to do something way beyond what you could even think that you could do just because you believe some part of it belongs to you. And because I believe that it was something that was an opportunity that could allow me to do something that I actually innately was gifted to do, that I literally was put on this earth to do, it changed and shifted my entire life up until this day. I still tell this story about how I love to counsel and mentor women who live in crisis mode because I lived in crisis mode. So I could identify with the women that I talked to on the street. I could identify with the women who were hurting. And one thing that it took me also to a new level of understanding of this prejudgmental way that I had because of being raised with so much integrity and living in a life of somewhat perfection. And perfection really is not real. It's just about understanding that you do have these gifts, these talents, and these core strengths. But if somebody doesn't have it on the same level as you, does not mean that they don't have their own set of gifts, talents, and core strengths. And one thing that my position led me to do was talk to sex workers on the street. And I could not understand at that time how women could be selling their bodies for money until the first day I interviewed the first woman. And when I saw her level of pain and how she had been abused as a child, it shifted my whole dynamics and understanding that her pain was so deep, she was running from it. And I began to ask God, how do I help them. And that was my first company. It was ACTS, Awareness Comes Through Sharing. And so I put this company together to begin to teach the room what their gifts, their spiritual gifts were, what their natural talents were, and what their core strengths were. And now I'm counseling women as I'm collecting this data for the Center for Disease Control. And that gave me a different level of understanding my own gift once again. Because, one thing about our gifts, our talents, and our core strengths, they continue to unfold. They morph on themselves. If you do the inner work by taking the time to learn who you are, why you are here, what your real purpose is, yep, the challenges are going to be huge. But the challenges are set to build character, to get you to gain the understanding of your uniqueness and how God breathed the breath of life into you. He gave you a part of Him so that you could activate the other parts of other people when we come collectively together. So we need to be together once we learn who we are and once we continue to do the inner work. It comes together to form our tribes, to connect to people such as yourself who teach people how to tell their stories and how to understand their stories and how to recognize the greatness and the genius that lives in all of us. Because I believe there is a leader in all the followers, and they're stuck trying to get out, trying to figure out who we are, why we're here, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how to do it. We have to have coaches. If you don't have mentorship from your family, then you have to, and even if you do, because my father was my first coach, and so was my mother. My father saw my gifts. I was singing at 5. I can remember the first song I sang. He had me building up my skill as an orator at the age of 9. My mother taught me how to sew. My mother taught me how to cook. So my parents knew innately what they wanted their 6 children to do, and I'm the youngest of 6. And so my sister was an accountant. So, my father specifically strategically put this drive together. So we knew growing up there were certain things that we were required to do, and there's certain things that we're going to do. I just did not understand the fullness of all the different kinds of gifts. And I find that women, and this is men as well, but I speak to women specifically, that understand that you have a lot of high sensitivity. You usually have a lot of gifts. And you're running around trying to see, should I do this gift? Should I do this gift? Should I do that gift? And it comes a time when you have to settle and just make a decision and stay with that particular gift. And eventually, as you cultivate that garden of gifts, as you continue to develop in your talents, you will come to know what career path, what your life path is about, and how to nurture and enrich yourself on a daily basis in your process called this life of a journey.
I have this sensation that as you are working with people, people that have a kind of a certain depth, it helps you to see yourself. That people become a mirror through which you can see yourself. And when you are doing this work that look like a calling, the more you do it, the more you are satisfied. Therefore, you are in this loop of continuously making a contribution to the universe. If that is the case, what did the people that you were working with help you to see in you? Share with me about that.
Well, I'll start with currently. I just finished a 21-day Enrich Her Moves. It's my book, and it is a meditation guide where I did something different this time than I did the other 2 times. I launched the book last October and did a big book launch and had, the celebration, had it at a bookstore. And what I learned from the other 2 times is that it's great to have recordings that you send out to people, because in the book I taught various breath modalities. So I taught you how to do different breath work according to whatever your situation was. If you had stress, if you had anger, if you had anxiety, it was a different breath for each component, right? Then I taught you various kind of guided meditations. But then what I understood was looking at the data, because I'm used to collecting data and analyzing it. So I looked at the data, and there were specific people that always open up the emails, and I couldn't really tell if they were doing the work or not, because you're relying on this artificial data to tell you, artificial intelligence to tell you if the people are at least opening up the videos, are they are turning in the worksheets. And so I really didn't want to build this particular time doing the online recordings. So what I did this particular segment of time, and literally it was from July the 7th of this year to July the 27th. I had a group of women that signed up, and I went live every morning at 6 a.m. And because we're excited when we start something new, the big group of women, they all started for the first 3-4 days. Everybody's on. And then it began to dwindle down to just a handful of women. But what I was so grateful for is that these women were so determined at this time in their lives to change some of their dynamics, the neural pathways in their thinking, their ability to get through and navigate their personal situations, ignite some different levels in their career paths. And the women who stayed the course, oh my goodness, the breakthroughs, the ability to navigate on a daily basis, because it's like the compound effect. What you do every day continues to grow, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. And when you're learning something new, there's a rule about 21 days. 21 days is supposed to create a habit. No, 21 days ignites the spark of the habit. But you've got to continue in that mode once the 21 days is over. And what I learned was that there was a pressing and a pushing even for myself. And not because I wasn't up, it's because I had to prepare for these women to be ready at 6 a.m. in the morning. And that didn't just stretch me, but it gave me a different level of emotional freedom. Because now it's like I saw in myself that I was planting on a deeper level, and I had revelations and I had opportunities that have now opened to me that seemed so like right on the edge for such a time. And now I have opportunities that have opened to me because I've opened myself to do something that I had not done before with a group of women and stay the course for 21 days at 6 a.m. But this is the other component. I reached out to them in the afternoon, and then I reached out to them before they went to bed at night. So that was 3 times a day for 21 days. It was so many miraculous things that happened in me and to them as well.
Get with me. What are some of those things that happen in you and for you, maybe?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I'm very protective about some of the things I could share. There is a segment in the book that talks about gently listening. And because you're gently listening, you're not supposed to tell some of the innate things that happen only because they're still unfolding. And when you tell too many, and this is a problem that I find with boundaries, when you tell too many of the intimacy of the things that are happening, then there's other energies that show up. So I'm not able to release those things right now, but I will tell you, if we get an opportunity to do later, once they have completely come open and I've actually walked through them and they've actually happened, I'll be willing to share. But we're in protective mode right now. I am even reinforcing with the ladies on a daily basis, do not share some of the intimate things, because when you've been sharing too much, some of the blockers show up. Some of the naysayers show up. So you have to stay the course until it completely opens. And then once you're past what it is that has been a blessing, has been an opening, has been an opportunity, then you can actually, it's about going into a sacred place and protecting what you're doing.
I like also when you were talking about knowing who you are, because I think that is a conversation that is going to be very important for us going forward, particularly looking at the situation of COVID-19. Because I said COVID-19 because that was a particular moment for a lot of people in that at this time, for very many years, you were left alone, or you were left alone with your mind to really figure out some things. In this moment, a lot of things happen for a lot of people because I know this because I was, that is actually when this podcast was born because I was interviewing a lot of people from the US to UK to Nigeria, another part of Africa, and here in Europe. I was just curious, trying to gather information, trying to understand what the people were feeling. So I think this idea of discovering yourself in a deeper sense is something that is fundamentally important as we move forward into the new world, if you want to call it like that. Now, I'm developing a signature program that is going to be available for the public probably by the 15th of this month. And it's essentially about owning your story, how you can use the power of your story to stand out in wherever you are and whatever you do. Because if you own your story, you never need to compete with anybody in this life. But if
Yeah.
you don't own your story, if you don't own yourself or your narrative, you always need to continue to compete with people because you will be living life from the point of view of scarcity, living life as if it's only limited. You see, another thing that I also find recently is that based on my research, I come to understand that uh, there have been about 117 billion people that have existed on the surface of the earth, including the over 7 billion people living today. Now, the message I quickly get out of that is if we pay attention to these over 170 billion people, each of us will be unique. Each of us will be a unicorn. That is how I call it now. But unfortunately, a lot of people are going to disappear from this world the same way they came. That they did not own their story. Therefore, we would not even know whether they have been here. You see, I think it is important that we should make a dent in the universe so that when we disappear, there should be a sign that we have been here. And the best way to do that is to own our voice. You need to use the chance that you are given today. Use it because anything you do not use, if you are given a gift and you do not use it, that gift is useless. The only way that your gift can be useful is if you use it. If you don't use your hands will become useless. All right. The question I really want to ask you there is how do you find your purpose? Share with me about that.
Well, first, when women come to me who still are unsure about their purpose, the first thing I send them to is a website called gifttest.org. And, they answer a few questions and they find out what their spiritual gifts are. Then I go through their top 3 gifts. And what I find so interesting is that sometimes it's 4 gifts because the numbers couldn't match exactly what maybe the third or second gift. But this test literally shows you if you're operating in a high level of your gift, a medium level, or a low level. Now, there's a gift that tends to show up a lot in women who are empaths, those who are very sensitive to other people's issues, and they should be either in counseling or being a counselor or a coach of some kind, is the mercy gift. Now, what people don't understand about gifts is that gifts are innate gifts that were given to us when we were created, right? And this mercy gift has tend to be a huge challenge for people because the mercy gift says you're showing mercy to other people. Now, if you're showing too much mercy to other people, it's eventually taking from you. And now you're experiencing the opposite of the gift, right? So moving forward from that, I explain the gifts to women. They understand exactly what the gifts are, how to operate in the gifts, and how they've been operating, and what to do to cultivate it, to enrich that gift. I teach that. Then I do a behavior analysis. This is a personality behavior analysis. This talks about the private self, the perceived self and the public self. When I get done with this analysis, you know that you know that you know who you are, and you know the places you need to improve upon. So this is a 3-hour intensive that I do with women. So I am excited that because I started on my own journey, making sure I understood my personality type, understanding what my life path was, and understanding it from the day you were born and how the numbers add up with your life path. So there's 3 components that I teach to make sure that women understand who they are.
Thank you so much for that. I will ask you another question here, then we'll move into what I call the meat and potato of the conversation, which is self-therapy or self-therapeutic strategy or techniques that you use, because I think that is fundamentally important. But of course, we first of all need to understand our value first. Now, say maybe one of your guests come to meet you. This person still do not understand why they should even own their voice, why they should find their purpose, why they should find a deeper meaning to their life. Because I want to believe that if they don't have that, it's going to be difficult for you to work with them. Because, for example, in my signature program, I essentially are looking for entrepreneurs that are either already know that they have a deeper purpose or are looking for a deeper purpose. If you are only on the surface, yours is just for the money, we might not be a good fit. Before you can sign in, you need to do a quiz. After this quiz, we then can know, both of us, whether we are a good fit, because there is a lot of work to do. It's about 19 days. It's not something, I'm not going to do any magic. I don't do magic. You must be ready to do the work, because if you don't do the work, you're not going to get results. So to be sure that you are the right fit, we have some 21 questions that you are going to respond to, which is to say, it's not for everybody. The signature program is not for everybody. So in that sense, somebody like want to ask you, why is it important for me to even find a deeper meaning for myself? Should I do that? What would you say?
Well, I do a clarity session, an assessment with women when they first want to work with me one-on-one. And what's so interesting about that, within the first few moments, I can tell if the woman needs a therapist or she needs a coach. And I'll give you a little hint. In my line of questioning, and I ask the first question, if she answers a certain way, and she begins to talk about all of her pain in her past, I know instantly she needs a therapist. And I finish my line of questioning up until a point, and then I either refer her to someone if she's open, and if she's not, then I give her a gift, and what is one of my breathing techniques. And then I'll follow up with her within 6 months and see what her progress is.
Yeah. That is really very important now, which is also one of the reasons that people must know their story. You must know your onions. You must know who you are looking for. One thing I often say in our storytelling series on LinkedIn, because we have 2 storytelling series on LinkedIn. One of them is a business storytelling series where we talk about strategy, about how to use storytelling in your business. The second part is about diaspora storytelling, where we talk about our feeling, our sensation, whatever we feel among ourselves, which have not necessarily about business. So I often say that, particularly in business, when you tell your story, you expose yourself. But this exposure is important in that some people are going to run away from you. They're going to be, no, I'm not, that is not me. That is not my thing. I'm not interested in that. I say often, that is a good thing. It means you're not going to waste your time now. But note, other people listening to your story or haven't heard your story are going to gravitate towards you, because it means those are the people your story resonates with. Because you are telling your story to a people who the story is going to make sense to. And another thing as well that I found in storytelling is that when you tell your story, you help other people to find confidence in themselves so that you become a mirror through which they can see themselves. Therefore, you are an instrument to them to become a better version of themselves. But for that to happen, They need to resonate with you, or your story need to resonate with them. So that is going to be this alignment. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So storytelling is fundamentally important in our business. All right. Having said that, why should people even care about self-therapy, if I were to put it like that?
Well, I'll tell you to start and begin with me when it comes to self-therapy. Uh, After I had done the first company, Acts Awareness Comes Through Sharing, I realized that I was in a state of burnout because I had given out so much to the women that I was teaching them so much how to care for themselves. I was not taking in everything I was teaching for myself. And unfortunately, it's a common practice for a lot of practitioners. And so I wind up with high blood pressure. And so the doctor puts me on medication. And because of the legal education that I had prior to, um, instantly I began to have pain in my side from the medication. So I knew something was off because I'd never taken medication before. And at this point, I'm in my 30s. And so I say to the doctor, something's not agreeing with me with the medication. He's like, oh, Eliza, it's the lowest dose. This is the best medication for you. So in my spirit, I did not agree. And so the doctor and I went back and forth. Long story short, I began to pray and ask for a natural solution because I believed in my heart of hearts. Because I always believed that healing was a gift. I always believed that it was our right because I saw my father healed from several things. And then from his childhood stories, I just had a high level of faith, believing that healing was our right. So after doing the research and studying, what came up for me was breath work. Excuse me. So I began to study breath work. And at the time, there was no breath classes in the United States. So I connected with the doctor from the UK and I began to study the way he taught the breath work. And sure enough, my pressure began to come down. That's my first self-therapeutic tool that I began to teach. So now it's becoming the newest modality in the United States. So this is like around 2011. And so every time I go to look at another course, there's different names for the breath work, there's different ways to do it. So what I locked in to do was to find out what resonated with me and how often I should or should not do it. And so that completely opened up the new company, the Breathing Experience. That was birthed around 2012. And it literally capsized. Now, this sounds really, really strange, but it capsized during the pandemic because during the pandemic, everybody was talking about breath work. Everybody was talking about breath work. Everybody was talking about breath. And so I literally did not know how to compete because my sessions were all live. I had a contract with the City of Philadelphia court system where the at-risk youth, the human traffic population, as well as the at-risk youth who were in the juvenile justice system were required to come to my class because I had a stress management class and breath work was the number one modality. So that alone was the first one, but then it morphed because breath work really brings out your insecurities. It brings out those places within you or those emotions that's been hiding through you either overworking, not focused on who you really are, and the ultimate one, not really taking care of your whole self. And your whole self is you can go to the gym and take care of the body, but if you don't take care of the mind, eventually those thoughts will create different types of sickness and disease because you're doing one part, but the other part that's just as important as the other part is not coming together as a whole. So it's mind, body, and spirit. We were first spirit, and we're formed into this body. So you can take care of the body, but if you don't take care of the mind, then the mind stays disconnected from the body, and that's the open door for sickness and disease. So that was the first modality. The next modality was the meditation. And so when I looked at meditation, there's so many different kinds of transcendental meditating, right? And what I learned was to take the breath into the meditation. That gives the release in the physical body and in the spiritual mind and the soulish part, which is the mind, the will, and the emotions. And now I have like 6 different modalities that I teach.
Thank you so much for that. In fact, I wanted the conversation to just go on and on and on because it was really, really, really valuable. You see, you touched some really key point there that in the course of my interview, some people have shared with me, particularly people in the medical field. I remember that I've interviewed a doctor here of an African ancestry, of course, where we have talked about this corporation of the body. Now, of course, we are looking at the two way of looking at the body that here in the Euro-Western society, they tend to treat a particular part of the body where you have an ailment. And an ailment now we mean the malfunctioning of a part of your body or your entire body as it may be. Really is an entire body. But he was saying that it is good that we heal the entire body. Okay, treating and healing are not really the same thing because you can isolate a certain part of the body, like maybe the eyes, no? You treat the eyes, but maybe the problem is really not the eyes. Because if that is what you succeed to do, you can finish with the eyes, but the problem might come to manifest in the ear because the problem is not the eyes. The problem is coming from somewhere. So that if we heal the entire human body now, which is the holistic, the entirety of who you are, and who you are now is not just about physically you. It might be that there is this connection between you and your extended family. So that what we are healing, therefore, is not just you as an entity, but extended you, the whole of it. If we can heal it like that, then the problem can be resolved because you now or your eyes, maybe we might heal it from there, but it might manifest even in an entire human being that is not you, but that is an extended you. Anyway, I don't know if I'm overstating that, but what I'm saying is that I really find a lot of value there in when we're talking about the fact that we don't need to concentrate just on the part of the body, which is this corporation of the body, as it were. No? Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Now, you made mention of the breath work. Could you please say something more about that? Some people do not understand what that means.
Okay, so I followed exactly what you just said. And what I thought was so interesting is that when I got diagnosed with a high blood pressure, they were concerned about the high blood pressure, not what caused it. So what I found was causing it as I began to do my own inner work was that I was going through a divorce. That was highly stressful for me. I was entering into menopause, perimenopausal, and my heart was racing at night. So I went to back to my herbalist, who I had been in contact with since I was at the age of 18. So I trusted his advice. He says, Eliza, your blood pressure is only slightly high. He says you need to change something that you're eating. You need to get off of all fried foods. So you need to go back and start playing tennis and make these your priorities on a daily basis. He said you have to find a way to learn how to de-stress and decompress. And I began to start walking and playing tennis. And this is the thing, I did not have a tennis partner. So I would go to the neighborhood school with my tennis racket and my balls, and I would hit against the wall. That right there released so much tension and pressure in my mind and my body. It helped me to disconnect from all the outside forces, all the things that I was thinking, the patterns of thinking that I was having, the emotional overload that I was experiencing, the anxiety that showed up, I now had a remedy. So when I was going to bed at night, my body wasn't on overload because I did something physically to release the pressure. And now I'm doing the breath work. So I'm literally doing what we call, and I'll give you an example called the I breath. The I breath is for anger because I could go from 0 to 1,000 in a moment. So I knew I was experiencing some levels of anger, you know. And at the time, I had custody of a niece, and so it was just a lot of pressure for me. So the I breath was literally taking in the breath, and then on the exhale, which is the release, you would go, ah. That right there pulled like a wellspring spring of energy out of me that was negative. And I teach that as one of the core breaths right now is to inhale and to exhale by saying ah. And that was a life-changing experience for me.
Okay, now there's also another thing that I found important in your work uh, is a self-leadership. And I think in a way you already are touching it because now you're talking of taking control of yourself, taking certain action that is going to help you become a better version because as you are progressing, as you are moving on or correcting something that is wrong, you are becoming better in it. And but you are becoming better intentionally. So you are taking decisive action. So I'm looking at leading yourself or self-leadership as it were. Now, looking at maybe what you do within the area of self-therapy, what would you recommend maybe some of the best strategy for somebody who need to walk your path, the path that you have already walked now, somebody want to walk it, but this person doesn't know what to do. I want you to give them some recommendation so that they can lead themselves to where they want to go.
You know, life is all about reflecting. And I believe, honestly, we don't reflect on some of the things that are great about ourselves once we acknowledge them, that they've happened in the moment. We get excited when we find out, oh, this is my purpose. Oh, this is who I am. But reflecting every day literally helps us to come back and say, okay, in my path, am I taking the time to be the best me? So, with saying that is, I've had an opportunity recently to take one of my clients and begin to teach her some of the modalities that I'm teaching and um, put her in a position where she'll start doing some of my clarity sessions. Because when it comes to self leadership, we don't understand the innate power that we have. So I've literally taken the word self leadership and shifted a little bit into spiritual intelligence. And that was recently added to my website because I've been teaching on spiritual intelligence, which is the overview, or I should say the mother of self-leadership. Spiritual intelligence is just that innate power and authority that we've been given. And in that authority, we have the authority to govern our own spiritual journey. And so when you think about that from the components of self-leadership, are you following all of the whims and all the different doctrines and all the different things that people are telling you to do? Or are you in a space now where you've taken time to navigate and define for yourself, these are my leadership skills? How do I cultivate my leadership skills? You first have to build a tribe of leadership. And what I mean is, I tell everybody all the time, you should have at least somebody in your tribe that's an attorney, somebody in your tribe that does bookkeeping and accounting. You should have somebody in your tribe who is a coach, who helps you with your emotions, or therapy if you have some problems with your childhood issues. You know, you should have somebody who is a confidant. You should have somebody in your space where you have fun with. You have to have these different components because they help to build your leadership skills. Because when you are just a workaholic, which I have been guilty of, and you work and you work and you work and you don't make time to enjoy the process of life. You don't put those components in your circle where if you have an emergency, if you have a situation, you can run to somebody who you know you've established a relationship with to handle this, that, and the other, right? But when it comes to the totalness of self leadership, it's about how do you govern yourself on a daily basis. From the time you open your eyes, what are you saying to yourself? And throughout the day, are you taking time to recharge? What I always say, push your refresh button for yourself because you're giving out so much of your energy. You're sharing so much of your knowledge. Can you receive when somebody gives you some constructive criticism? All of this comes about with how you govern yourself from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. Are you taking time to reflect, to recharge, to acknowledge, and to navigate your day on a daily basis? Are you optimizing your time, which making time for yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically? These are all a part of your leadership, your self-leadership. And I went from all the things you should have into how you operate on a daily basis because it's important. Recently, I had a situation with one of the houses that I own, and I had a client that I've worked with, and she's in the political arena. So I could call her and say, I need this particular contact. Within a matter of an hour, she got back to me. I got the contact and I got it resolved. That's why I say, people, you have to have people in your inner circle of leadership. Then you have to have self leadership practices. So that's what it is in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for that. Now, within the people that we are mostly targeting in the classes media are entrepreneurs that are purpose driven. That this entrepreneur must, okay, I think I already said it before, must have a kind of a bigger inner drive for what they are doing, which is bigger than money. Money is good. Money is really, really good. Nobody's going to downplay that. But
Yeah.
money alone is not enough to be an entrepreneur. I want to point that out, at least for the type of people that we want to work with. Now, let's say those are the people that you are talking to. How would they apply these techniques in their life, in their entrepreneurial journey, so that they can better serve this purpose, which, of course, in the end, is about also helping other people becoming a better version of themselves. Because as an entrepreneur, you are providing a solution to the people, to the society, but there must be a reason why you are doing that. Share with us.
Well, in the entrepreneurship journey, you have to have a coach and you have to have a mentor. And sometimes one coach may not satisfy the totalness of what your path is. And I'll give you an example. I had a coach for selling, right? Then I had another coach for marketing, right? They seem like they're the same, but they're different. You're selling to a specific audience and you're marketing to a specific audience, but you're also building your framework online. That was something I had to morph into from doing a lot of live events because I enjoy live events. There is a synergy that happens in live events and gives people an opportunity to have more interconnection with you. Now we brought it over to the side of we can use it online, like we're online on a live recording here, right? That's majorly important. But what I find for entrepreneurs is that you have to map out your life plan. And it doesn't mean that it's going exactly like that, but you have to have a framework, specifically how you're going to deal every single day. And you have to have an end goal, you have to have timelines, and you have to have the support system. And I've gone through so many coaches throughout the years. And what was frustrating for me personally was that some of the coaches that I paid the most money to did not have their own frameworks in place. So, and when I got an inkling of that, I'm asking for refunds. I'm asking for this, that, and the other, and it's kind of support systems. And because I am innately have a gift where I can see gaps in situations or gaps in programs, gaps in systems, when I could identify with it, I'm coming to tell, and I'm coming to reveal to you where I see the gap at. So I know for myself and working with entrepreneurs, I'm thinking about an example of one right now. There's an entrepreneur I'm working with who had to take a job, just like I did, right? Because when you realize that your finances are strained, you have to go and do something that keeps the money flow, right? So sometimes you have to maintain your job, or if you like, didn't have a job for 10 years, right? And then after my company capsized, I had to go get a contract. I didn't get a regular job, I got a contract. So I could still have some level of control over my time. But you have to put these frameworks in place, because when you can look at your vision and you can continue to work towards it every day, it's like the business plan. You got to have a business plan, and you have to have a personal plan. And then you have to have a family plan too, because they have to all tie in together. And what I find that women do is that they work so hard towards the business side, they neglect some of the personal things that happen in the house. And I'll tell you a prime example. You put all the energy out in the day towards the business. And when it's time to deal with the family, your resistance shows up. Your energy is low. Your want-to is like, all I need to do is just feed the family and go to bed. No, the family still wants some time with you. The children still want some time with you. Might even be the grandchildren. Depends on what stage of the life you're in. Or the spouse needs some time with you. The spouse is supposed to come before the children, but a lot of women put the children before the spouse. So there's a lot of different dynamics that happen here.
Talking of the dynamics, I'm going to ask your opinion. This is important. You see, yesterday, I was seeing a post. This post was saying, of course, it had to do with how much is it really easy to manage entrepreneurship and family. This individual brought out three people that all of us know. Bill Gates, whose wife have left him. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, whose wife have left him. And the founder of Amazon, whose wife have left him. These are very important people in our world. It's not that there is lack of money. It's not that they are not understanding people. It's not like these are very high class in the society. These are the richest people in the world. So the question I'm really asking you is, how do we balance business, entrepreneurship, therefore, and family?
You have to map your family into your business. That's so important. Now, my husband has reiterated that with me. And what I think is so important is having certain days for certain things. I'll tell you, on Tuesdays is my husband and our self-therapeutic day, where I do his feet. I'm very good with his feet. So I do his feet, and he does my facials. So that is intimate time together, right? There's no children in the house at this point in our lives. So, and every other week, we completely disconnect from social media, from the computers, and even from the phone. And every evening at 9:30, I don't talk anymore to anybody. And my phone goes into the other room. So if there's an emergency, most of the times you really can't help with certain emergencies, right? But people call on you because you're like the go-to. You're like the family police. You're like the one who counsels the world, right? But you have to have these boundaries in place. And I believe the boundaries, like you just made known, people are chasing money. You have these very successful financial people who have been able to acquire the money, but still deal with the everyday struggles of not balancing family and work life. And it requires you to make time for your family and your work life. And so you have to build your work life around your family too. Even though when you first start out, there's got to be an open conversation. I need these many days to do this. And it's really about communicating. How honest are you with your timelines? If your timelines are running over, do you communicate that? Do you pick certain days you're going to do certain things on, and you are sticking to what you have promised? You are holding on to your integrity because you realize, okay, every Thursday is the day we clean the house. Or every Saturdays, every morning we do, Saturday morning we do the laundry. Are we going to do it together? Or are we going to do it separate? So now you can begin to incorporate things, that you do things together that are things that have to be done. Are we going to go food shopping? Or are we going to order the food and have it sent to the house? When you frame out that you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're already into entrepreneurship, you still have an opportunity to say, I'm going to do this on a certain day. Mondays, I do no appointments. I do no contact with people as a whole, right? Same thing with on Fridays. Most of my work thing is happening between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and sometimes Saturday. And because I did the 21 days, I did get a little kickback from my husband, but I did the 21 days, and Sunday nights at 8 p.m., I was on the line between an hour to an hour and a half, because at 6 a.m., we're only on the line between 15 to 20 minutes. So even though it was something only going on for 21 days, and that means it was 3 Sundays, my husband was not used to me doing a live on those evenings. So now that I've taken a break, I don't do the 21 days again until December the 15th. And I would have done it in September, but because we have a protocol in place where we travel to an undisclosed place once a month together for a weekend. That's part of our system of making sure that we stay close. We have some of the talks we need to have, and we just totally disconnect from the outside world. So, it took time to get here, though. This didn't happen. This came through trial and error. But now that I know what my husband's requirements are, I honor them, And if I think that I can't honor it on a certain day, I do the pre-work of coasting him into, honey, this day is going to be different today. I know I'm not going to be able to make this appointment, da 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 da.
In fact,
And I
I was
try
coming.
not to miss those appointments because he's not always so giving. He's a little better now, but he wants his time when he wants his time. And when you schedule the time, my husband's the kind of person, he's very adamant that what you promise you keep.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I was coming to ask there, how easy is it to be able to keep to those routine, looking at how fluid the entrepreneurial world is, because anybody that is a business or that is into the online environment where you are continuously creating content, or in the creative industry, you know that it is very fluid. So because there are some dynamics that you just do not anticipate, and it happen, and they are very crucial for the survival of your business sometime. So yeah, I think you already responded to that. But anyway, maybe if you can say more about that.
I believe one thing about entrepreneurs, we have to be so flexible. And there's so many different levels of learning. And we have to condition ourselves to be life learners. And patience beyond patience, beyond patience. You will grow a different skill set in patience and understanding and learning how to be calm in chaos. I really believe as a whole for entrepreneurs is that, once again, that you have to constantly revisit your vision, your why you're doing this. You have to constantly revisit that you're going to stay as close as you can on a daily basis, which you promise. But what's very important is that pre-work. You can't get up and just start your day and not do meditation. And I'll say breath work too. because those components open up your psyche and your inabilities to be able to be open to what's ever showing up. You're not constantly going into panic mode. I tell you, sometimes what happens when you're going to do live events, technology can mess up. And you're like, wow, did I get on 15 minutes before? Should I've gotten on an hour before? A lot of times when we've done the pre-work, we already have an inkling that something could be off. We make room for whatever could happen. And that's a learning skill, because coming into entrepreneurship new, oh my gosh, you've got to put the frameworks in place. But as you've been in entrepreneurship a while, like we have, I've had like over 7 businesses over the years. I did a balloon business. I did a Sing and Telegram business. You know what I mean? I've done a lot of different, I made jewelry and they were very profitable at the time. I sold lingerie, you know what I mean? So I did some trendy stuff over the years to be able to get to where I am now, to find out that counseling, self-therapeutic still tools, and being able to teach on spiritual intelligence is my real baby right now, I just think entrepreneurs have got to put those frameworks in place and have to make promises, and you have to write down a promise. Sometimes you got to write down your own promise to yourself. I promise that I'm going to do this and this and this. And if I don't do it, I give myself some grace, but I can't make excuses, because excuses create procrastination. Procrastination brings in unworthiness, and it just morphs into all kinds of things you don't want and you definitely don't need. But it's still a part of the entrepreneurship journey. And we have to realize it really is a journey. And how you choose to enrich yourself helps you to enjoy more of the journey. I don't believe we enjoy the journey enough because we're so busy going towards the goal or the goal line.
Thank you so much for that. All right, now we're talking about entrepreneurship, but of course we're also talking about the human being, because it is the entrepreneur is a human being who deals with life. Like I just made mention of, we made mention of Elon Musk, Bill Gates. These are human beings. They have family, they have love, they have hate, they have moment of down, moment of up. But of course, they are always there all the time because they made promises to the world, to the people, that they are trying to keep up to. It's not easy. It's not easy. I want to repeat that again. Now, talking to this group of people, this entrepreneur who are preferring solution to the society, to their audience. And I think you also use another term in line with that, spiritual wisdom, me to them. How would they leverage that knowledge in what they are doing?
I think one of the highlights of spiritual intelligence is discerning your truth. And so when you know that you may have a problem with being late, or you may have a problem with talking too much, or you may have a high skill where you're a great seller, but you're not good at teaching somebody something. You have to be able to discern whatever your truth is and own it. And then as you discern it, then you have to embrace that you have specific gifts. So whatever your gifts are, you definitely need somebody else who does not have the strengths you have in your particular area. You need somebody that has the strengths where you're weak at. So, spiritual intelligence literally is about understanding how you are a great influencer, but how you influenced yourself. So I'll start from the time you wake up. If you're doing the pre-work, you're mentally preparing yourself for the day. So your spiritual intelligence is at a heightened position. But think about the days you get up and you don't do the pre-work, and you're feeling low, you're feeling irritable, you're feeling agitated, you're feeling pressured, you feel like you may have missed something, or you went to bed too late. And if you don't make time, then you find yourself operating in a higher level of chaos. So when you take time to be able to listen to your spiritual guide, you take time to trust that you're in a process, you take time to make time to constantly pause. And I always say this, if you're having a hectic day, spiritual intelligence should kick in and say, I need to take a 5-minute break, do some breath work, reflect, shift my mindset from feeling pressured to shift my mindset to telling myself something so positive. That's why having affirmations in place, I know I am capable and deserving of working through the situation with a greater ease, knowing that it will work for my highest good and everyone involved. Saying something positive immediately brings down the stress hormone, right? And it elevates that dopamine and serotonin, those happy hormones. And then you are in a different mind shift. Now it's like I can do all things. I can do anything I need to do. But when you're in a pattern of negative feelings and negative emotions, and you're talking stuff to yourself that's bringing you what? Down that rabbit hole. In order to get out of that rabbit hole, you got to make the shifts and begin to speak life into yourself. Begin to tell yourself that you can get through this next moment. I can get through this meeting. I can even get through that person in that meeting that's irritating me. I can even learn something from that person who's trying to tell me some constructive criticism. Wherever you find yourself at, if you put the pre-work in place, it becomes second nature. That's what spiritual intelligence is doing the pre-work. So when you show up in situations where you know you've got your back against the wall, you know how to make the necessary shifts because you already have it in you. So you can say those things, you can think those things, you can respond differently because you have now been able to make the necessary shifts to go into that next moment. Because that's what we have control over. And that's what spiritual intelligence says. You have control over the moment you are in. And when you take time to build up your confidence and your faith in that moment, it transcends. It helps to shift atmospheres. It helps to send energies that's positive out to other people. We have so much power inside of us that we have not fully tapped into because we're so busy trying to move and get everything done, as opposed to doing the inner work first so that it shows out in the atmosphere of what we want to create. We are creators first before we're anything else.
Thank you so much for that. That is highly valuable. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. I appreciate that. All
You're
right, that is a
welcome.
question I should have asked you before. Now I'm asking you now, but of course it still makes sense. Now somebody's wondering. I don't even know what you mean by self-therapy. What does that mean? What is self-therapy?
Well, when you go to therapy, you tell a therapist all your business, and there's two ways I've seen therapists operate. They just listen, record, and you just come and just release. And then there's another kind of therapist that gives you some specific kinds of tools to go back and do the inner work. Most of the women that I've had contact with that have actually done therapy, because I've done therapy, um, the tools that you get. When we talk about therapy, there's soothing um, practices that you use. And we'll take breath work. When you take a deep breath, you go inward. You connect to your spirit. Yes, you feel harmony. You feel support. You feel a release. You feel a letting go. And then you feel refilled because you're not looking at anything on the outside. You're not thinking about your concerns or your problems. You're literally going in and taking a complete disconnect from everything and just embracing a moment to feel good, to feel good. So there's a couple of things that happen at that time. You release and let go and you receive. So in that moment, There's a refreshing that comes. There's a renewing of your mind that happens. There's an elevation in your spirit and your consciousness to literally do like a brain dump. I'm letting all this stuff out to literally take a moment and be at peace and feel the inner calmness and that soothing peace that brings you back together where you were disconnected at. That's what self-therapy is all about.
All right, again, let's look at entrepreneur. Are there ways that, or maybe are there some strategy or maybe some therapeutic techniques for self-worth, maybe for self-worth? Maybe in this case, we are looking at an entrepreneur who is maybe strongly with self-worth, but maybe going through some therapeutic or self-therapeutic techniques, he or she can come to find a lot of worth or self-confidence and all of that in his or her entrepreneurial journey. Is there anything you can share with us?
First things first, you need some affirmations. Affirmations literally move out negative self-talk. And when you become consistent, and I'll tell you one of our when you are doing affirmations, if you record them and hear your own voice, and I can tell you specific times to do it, but I'll tell you this. When you listen to your own self, affirming yourself, there is a interconnective force of energy that brings about a harmony and an interconnection that says, this is me. I am worthy to prosper. I am worthy to be in good health. I am worthy to excel in this particular job or this particular meeting or this particular contract. When you begin to affirm yourself, it shifts your neural pathway. It even speaks to every cell in your body. And it brings about a harmonious self-confidence that begins to rise and begins to go deeper. Because it's like a tree. A tree has roots. It grows deep, 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 deep. That's what the affirming words do. It creates a foundation, right? And then you begin to sprout out and you see it happening in your talk, in your attitude, in your level of confidence, and your ability to articulate and communicate better because you're standing in your foundation of truth. You're owning that you are worthy of how you are cultivating your life on a daily basis, and it's showing up in your business. It's showing up in your self-talk. It's showing up in your outer talk. It's showing up in your inner talk with others and your outer talk with others. So it's literally taking over everything, and it's diminishing the low self-worth, and it's rising up the higher self-worth. And that's connecting you to what? Your higher self. That's what we want to do with affirming words. That's what affirmations are all about.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Now, people that are listening to this conversation up to this point now, they've gotten the feeling they want to connect with you. So what is the best way to reach out to you? Share with them, please.
Sorry about that. That's my alarm again. Tell me to do something else. I've had these alarms set for certain times, and I couldn't turn them off because there's certain things that I do certain times throughout the day. Connect with me right now. I am doing more one-on-one for the rest of the year, and I only have a capacity of 2 openings left. And what I think is so exciting about one-on-one is I do a full assessment on you and behavior analysis as well as your gifts. And even if you've been operating a business for a year or 6 months or even for 20 years, there's such value and understanding to bring to the forefront of your thinking how powerful you are spiritually and naturally, and to take away some tools and new concepts to make you operate with a greater ease. I didn't say easy all the time, but a greater ease. So you go in with a mindset that I can accomplish this. This will happen. This requires a different level of patience in me. So connecting with me literally is just going online to enrichhermoves.com and leaving me a message. And once you give me your phone number, you'll get a text, an automatic text from me, and I'll send you my calendar, and you can sign up and do a clarity session. And after the clarity session, we'll see if we are a good fit to work together. And if we are, let's move forward. And if we're not, I'll still leave you with some type of gift that will help you to understand how important it is to do the inner work on a daily basis so that you can live enriched more and more and more because you deserve to do so and be so.
You were saying before that I think you got into a program, and I think you said you paid a high amount of money, but you didn't get a good return on investment, so you had to ask for a refund. And you said that this program didn't have frameworks. I don't know if you want to talk more about framework. Again, looking at entrepreneur, what kind of framework should they have so that they can better serve their people? Maybe, for example, in your experience, no, when they develop program, they should be able to set up a framework to meet the need of the client.
Well, as far as the frameworks, mine has changed. I'm simplifying things more than ever because I've been through all the funnels and doing the blogs and all that. My framework, I can tell you for myself right now, is YouTube. We're building up our YouTube channel. I now have a team that I totally adore, who really gets me. And I think first is always building a team, whether it's one or two people. And you might not be able to pay them. And if you can pay them, definitely put them on payroll. But that's the first thing. You have to be able to have somebody who listens to you. And as you have the business plan and you have your family plan, because those are just frameworks you have to put in place. And once you put in your day-to-day operations, then you should have a coach. And that coach should be a coach who literally does exactly what you do or have done it. And this is the thing about a coach. The coach doesn't have to even know you. You could have a virtual coach that you're watching. You could buy their books. You could interact with them on the social media. Because, I mean, my coach initially was like $50,000. I didn't have $50,000 to pay the coach, And so I began to watch and glean. I took the book, and the coach literally put everything I needed in the book. Now, this is not the one that I was talking about before. The other one, I paid them thousands of dollars, and they had assigned me a coach. And when I started the program, they started with mindset. And before I started the program, I specifically told them I didn't want a portal that started with mindset because I didn't have any issues with mindset. I wanted to go straight into the framework of how to build this other specific kind of funnel and how to sell to a specific kind of audience. And I needed to have it all in one. And when I started the program, they removed the coach. So now I got put into a system after I paid them the first $5,000. I was upset, but back to the framework. When you have your team and you have somebody to listen to, be consistent. I don't care if you guys don't have anything new to talk about. Set meetings up every single week. And sometimes when you're building a team, you need to have 2 to 3 times a week. But stay consistent with your meetings, because even though you may come with the same agenda or you just have one thing to talk about, you never know the ideas or the implementation of what needs to happen because somebody else adds something new into the conversation from your team. And as you're building your team, trust your team. Trust that somebody has something to give besides you. Because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we can get so egotistical that we know exactly the way it should go and it should got to go this way and it got to way. Some things really do have to go that way, but you got to be flexible. that somebody else could bring something else to the table to bring about that spirit of ease or enlighten you in a way. And with your social media, be so intentional with your social. I don't post a lot on social media, and I don't post my 21 days. I've not posted anything about the last 21 days. The ladies are like, Eliza, we have videos, because I do ask for videos for reviews or written reviews, and I have them. I will put them out on the next time before we do the actual next launch. But I have a total different ways of doing things, because I do things according to what I feel spiritually led to do in my framework. But when people are starting off frameworks, to kind of stay on the thing about frameworks, there's a lot of things going on in my head right now. But on the framework, because this has been a great interview. This has been one of the best interviews I've had. But in the framework, it's about writing down, what do you think you really need to have to excel in your business? And revisit that constantly, because it's going to change. And the more you mature, the more you go through the daily activities of your operations, your view of what your company looks like is going to grow. Give yourself room to grow. But make sure you have that coach. Make sure you have the bookkeeping in place. Make sure you have a system in place where you're watching your finances. Make sure you have in place that in your coaching, that you're always asking questions, because no question is dumb. When you don't ask the question, it leaves blanks and leaves room for error. Ask as many questions as you need to. I mean, we have the support of AI. I took a couple of courses in AI early on, because when I saw in the 1980s that we were moving into computers, I bought my first computer in 1985. IBM was selling for $50. I went and bought that computer, and I took a training and began to teach myself. So when I landed my first job as a counselor, I got partially the job because I could operate the computer, and everybody else coming in could not operate the computer. I was ahead of the game. And I still take courses to make sure I know that I know what I'm doing. So stay up with AI. People are afraid of AI. AI cannot answer everything. You do have to learn how to do the prompts. But it's so beneficial, because you can take your whole program and put an AI and tell it to recreate this, that, and the other. And sure enough, if it's not right the first time, you keep putting it back in over and over again until you get those components in this place where it is acceptable to you. Utilize all of the tools. If your coach is not meeting your needs, get a new coach. Don't hesitate on firing your coach and get a new coach. I've had so many coaches, and I didn't fire my coaches. I just realized they've given me what I needed to have. It's time to go to a new one. I always have a coach. I always have someone that I can bounce ideas off of. I can have someone who can give me critical instructions, can critique. I love when someone can tell me where my gaps are, because you cannot see all of your gaps in your programs. And you need the assistance of the other great minds. Go into some groups on Facebook, connect with them, and make sure you create your own group, because this is the thing. Make time in the midst of building your framework to process this information. Don't just take it on and keep moving and moving and moving and never sit down and say, is this really working for me? Because whenever you ask the question, you can rest assured the answer is going to come in some form or fashion. When you learn how the Spirit of God speaks to you, it is so rewarding. And once you think you've locked in this pattern, there comes a new pattern of how you're being spoken to. You have to stay flexible. You have to be open. If you've got anxiety, work on that anxiety. If you have great successes, don't let them take you so far over that you forget that you're going to have some challenges later on. Because with the high success comes another new challenge. So we're constantly in the perpetual circle of growing and morphing and learning and growing and morphing and learning. So stay open
It's
to
all
the
full of
change,
fun
because one
anyway.
thing that's certain, change is going to happen.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right. So, briefly, in few seconds, what would be your final thought here to conclude the conversation? We have talked about a lot of things, but of course, conclude it for entrepreneurs who want to leverage your knowledge to improve themselves.
As you're living in purpose, trust the process of life. Open yourself to take many, many vacations. I take a lot of mini vacations. Because when you come away from your daily activities of life, only way to see how to grow is to pull yourself back and away from it, to be able to see the fullness of it. Because while you're in it, you can't always see all the operations of it. But when you come away and you look back, hindsight 2020 teaches a lot. You gain new insights to have the foresight to move forward with more intentionality. So continue to enrich your moves.
Thank you so much for that. That is highly, highly a full lecture. I appreciate this. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And thank you.